Hey guys, donnellsstichery here, and I am here because I've had a bunch of requests for asking people asking me on how to go about getting started with doing FPP, like the beginning phases, the prepping and stuff like that. So I figure I take it from step one, and I will show you guys how I do this. This is not a set rule. You just gotta play with things to figure out what works best for you. But this is what works best for me for doing small projects of FPP, which is foundation paper piece. So I am going to drop you guys down to the table up here in just a moment, but just for a few starters and everything, this is what we will be doing because I'm doing this one tomorrow, November 13th. Wednesday evening at 6 p.m. So if you want to see this, come back and watch and hang out with me while I try and do the remainder of what I don't do on this video. You'll see on my live stream tomorrow evening. If you are catching this after November 13th at 6 p.m., then go check out that live stream to see the rest of this. But this is the gnome that I am doing today. I will share the link in the description box below. Where you can get these because I have already spoken with the creator of these. She sells them on Etsy. She is amazing. And the patterns are really cheap. Not cheap, but they're really good patterns and for not a high cost. Especially for the amount of work that I know that she's got to put into this. So these are awesome and I highly recommend them. I love them so much. And they're so adorable. As you can see, I've already done have like quite a few over here that I've been doing, including my latest, my little coffee gnome. So I'm going to swap you down to the table over here. Oh, and the foundation paper that I use, I actually just buy it off of Amazon. It's the best place that I found. Comes at 100 sheets at 8.5 by 11. Comes in a pack like this. It's 100 sheets. And it's the Carol Dokes foundation paper, 8.5 by 11, and it's recycled paper. And it's good. It works good in most inkjets and laser printers or copy machines. No shrinking, curling, or turning brittle. Holds up beautifully during stitching, tears away easily when you're done. This is the only paper I have ever used doing all of my foundation paper piecing, and I absolutely love it. So I'm going to set this off to the side. I brought it up just to show you guys what it is I use. Darn necklace won't stay where it's supposed to. Alright, so I am going to swap you guys down here to the desk so I can walk you through on exactly what it is I do, what materials I use, stuff like that. So down here you will see the pattern, my fabrics. This is a ruler I got from Matt and Fallon over at Soviet Quilts, and I absolutely love it for doing my foundation paper piece. If you look, you put this white piece of paper behind it. So if you look, you can actually see like a line going along the long ways here on both sides. That line, let me see if I can get a good grip. There you go. That little line right there that runs along there, that is actually 1/4 inch from the edge of the ruler. So if you lay this right here on the ruler or on the cutting mat, and if you have, say, your template, so let me show you this. Oh, this pattern here also comes with the letters that you can use heat and bond to, and they're already reversed letters, so that way there you can use the heat and bond to be able to draw it onto the heat and bond, press it onto the back of the paper or back of the fabric. I'm not going to be doing that route because of the fabric I'm using. So if you like, you can actually try and set this right here along the lines. And you see it's already at the edge of the paper, which it usually is. So what I do is I set this here along the edge, this dark line, which is the block. And that dotted line is supposed to be 1/4 inch away. So let's see if it actually is. And it looks like it is. So I would just trim right there, move my instructions out of the way, bring it up here. I'll put that line right here on the ruler onto the dark line here. That way there I'm cutting half an inch or a quarter of an inch away. And I absolutely love this thing. I no longer use my add a quarter ruler because this works for me. So that would be garbage. I keep these two portions here until I'm done, so that way there, for one, I know what gnome it is. And for two, this section right here, the bottom of it tells you how to assemble it. I don't want to show that part because it's not my pattern. You guys will have to buy the pattern to get that. So next up, what we do is, you see these red lines on this? That's your lines to cut your pieces apart. So that way there you can create it and then sew it back together. So we're going to start with these long lines, which is the F separating it from these three. And this one here, which is the E separating it from that. And I would try to actually be setting the edge of this ruler right on top of that red line. And that's where I'm cutting. You do not want to go a quarter of an inch away on that one, because otherwise you will be cutting away your pattern that you actually need. So that piece is ready to be made up. That piece is ready to be made up. Now this one here has 3 red lines that we need to cut on. And if you guys happen to hear any pitter patter, it is my dogs outside of my sewing room. If you hear any birds chirping currently, it is the birds up on the TV and not my actual birds in here. So what we're going to do next is we have these all cut up, ready to go. And what I usually like to do is keep them into an orientation that works. So I can try to keep them as organized as I possibly can. And as you can see, letter C here is going to be some rough pieces to get together. Now, when this finishes, it does finish off at 7.5 by 7.5. As you've probably seen on my wall over here behind me, there are some that are probably a little bit on the smaller side. And that's because sewing error on my end. I will fix that later, or what I'll probably do is just add some to a strip of fabric to the bottom, so that way there, make it the right size. So I am going to show you guys letter A of how I prep. The rest of these I will prep later. And to keep them all organized and together and everything like that, what I do is I pick them up. So see, these here actually all have like a letter at the bottom or somewhere on them. They all have like a large bold letter, alphabet letter. So and that is to let you know what letter that block is. So I keep them in order. And what I like to do when I'm working on this, I like to put them all in alphabetical order based upon the letter on them. And I just try and clip it. So that way they all stay together. So now we are going to take letter A. And I like to use, this is just the back of a charm pack, the cardboard that comes on the back of a charm pack. This is what I use for all my folding. So what I do is I put it right here on the right here on the line between number 5 and the rest of the pieces, because you need to be able to crease this. So what I do is I try and just fold this so that way because these lines are my sewing lines. And I just go to every one of those lines. I fold it all the way across. Don't necessarily have to, but I do because it's just easier for me than fighting with the paper. Another thing that you want to do is before you get to this point where you're cutting it all up and everything else, or if you even have like the original sheet, like I do right here. Because see, now all my pieces are all, this piece here is all folded up and ready to go, which makes it easier for folding it and lining everything up, which I'll show you guys in a moment. So what I do is, before I do up anything, as far as all the cutting and stuff, I look at this and I go, okay, what fabrics do I want and where? For this one here, I have this fabric here. I'm going to use the back of that as my skin tones for like his nose and his hand. The next up is the white. I did pull the white for something. I do not remember what it was now. I think I had changed my mind along the way. But we're going to put this out to the side just in case I figure it out. Next up, what I used on my coffee gnome. Let me grab that so I can show you. So this is my coffee gnome. And as you can tell, his beard is this fabric right here. It's got a lot of twirly movement, which worked great for his beard. So I'm going to use that for his beard here too. Hang that back up. So, and then we have this dark brown. This dark brown I'm actually going to use for the football as well as his shoes. Because, you know, boys, okay, and girls, but people get muddy when they're out playing football. And then for his hat and his jacket, I'm going to use this beautiful light baby blue. It's like a watercolor type of blue. And then for the flag, I am going to actually fussy cut. Based upon the size, it'll probably be like this M or the M Go Blue. I wanted to do this as Detroit Lions. However, it turns out I don't have any Lions fabric. But I did have some Michigan Wolverine golden blue fabric. So that's what we're going with. We are going to do the flag in this. And that way there, I don't even need to use one of those letters. Because it'll already have it on here. So it'll either be the gold blue, the M Go Blue, or it'll probably just be like this Michigan M right here. Because I don't really have a whole lot of space to work with there. Yeah, I think it'll probably be that. But I'll figure it out once I get to that point. So I'll fussy cut a few of them and test them out to see what I got. So yeah, so we won't be using the white based upon what I figured out. Because I think I was originally going to do this for the beard, but I've decided against it. And to go with a twirly fabric for the beard. So that's always the best thing to do, at least in my book, is to figure out your patterns. Or figure out your fabric placements. Next up, what we're going to do is I'm going to take letter A here. And I always like, if you ever notice during my live streams, I always keep this handy close by. So that way there I can reference where each one of these letters and numbers falls within the pattern here as a whole. So we will need background fabric, which will be, you know what, that's where I messed up. I forgot to grab my background fabric. Because this is the clothing, the light blue. This is the flag. Shoes, beard, skin tones. I forgot to grab my background fabric. So, I'm going to pause this for a moment. I'm going to grab some background fabric. Okay, guys, I am back. Sorry about that. I actually changed up a few items here. So, instead of doing the shoes and the football and that one brown that I already showed you, I actually changed it to where I'm going to be doing this. To me, that has more of a leather feel to it. And then for the, I already cut a strip up here of this light blue for the clothing. And then for the background, I'm actually choosing like this tan color. I really love this fabric. And it's a keepsake calico through Joanne Fabrics. And I absolutely love it. I pretty much keep this stuff in stock year round because I use it so much. So anyway, so the first thing that we are going to do is we're going to figure out what our number one is going to be for our fabric right here. Because you always want to start with number one. So based upon our pattern over here, our original copy, number 1 is a background. So we're going to take our background fabric. And yes, I know it's not pressed or anything. It has some wrinkles in it, and that is completely fine with me. As long as it's not super horrible, it does not bother me whatsoever. So what I'll do is I'll try and lay my number 1 down here. And I'll move these over based upon the sew line. So I'll take my fabric. Let me see if I can't get you guys at a better angle. Just one moment. I'm going to turn off the camera for a second. I am still here. I'm just moving the camera. But I want you to have a better angle. So I gotta get you moved, but without getting you all motion sickness. Let's check this out, see how that works. Okay, slight movement. There we go. Okay, so we are going to take number 1 right here is the one that we need. This is going to be my background fabric right here, this light blue color, because it looked really good with the color scheme I'm doing. So what I do is I turn it over on all of the seam sides to make sure I have plenty of fabric. And this will need to include my 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I'm just going to trim this away. Make sure you keep your fingers out of the way of the rotary cutter. And what I'll do is I'll try and overlap. Granted, I know I have my 1/4 inch right here from this edge. But as you can see, there's no extra room here on this side. And that is because one of the other blocks got to go there. So you need to make sure that on the sides where you had tried and cut along that red line, that you leave a 1/4 inch extra there. Because the designer did not accommodate for that. And that's okay, because not everybody does. What I like to do, because I know I'm going to be sewing right here to connect 1 and 2, I'll pin over here through the paper and the fabric. That way there it holds the number 1 fabric right there. And whenever I pull this back on the fold line, which is between 1 and 2, which will also be my sew line, I'll pull this back. I'll see here I have extra fabric there that I don't really actually need. So I will lay my ruler there. That line that you see right here going long ways along here, where I got my 1/4 inch seam allowance right there, I'll lay that right on the folded edge of the paper. That way there I have a nice 1/4 inch of fabric. Trim that off. Oops. And then we'll go, okay, now we need number 2, which is the fabric for our skin tones. And we don't need a lot of that, so it is this fabric here that I'm using. Yes, it has like leaves and whatever else on there. I'm going to use this back side of it because it's nice. It's got some texture to it, but not a lot. And it's like a nice tan color. So what I would do is try and lay this right here on the edge of that. And then I would try and fold this back over. Now some people will actually leave this folded and sew right beside of this paper. I don't do that because I just buy these papers. I don't do this often enough where I gotta worry, stress about it. So what I'll do is I'll come over to the sewing machine and I'll sew right on that line that is between 1 and 2. I will start right before and I will end right after. That way there, whenever I go to do the next piece, a 3, when I go a little bit over on the 1 and 2 here, over into the 3 section, that'll actually try and crisscross with the number 3 stitch, which will try and lock in that stitching. That way there, it keeps my stitching from coming undone. So now I'm going to move you over to the sewing machine because we're going to do number A together. So I'm going to try and come over to the sewing machine and I will show you this part. Let me turn off the camera so I can move it over to the other screen. Oops, sorry about that. I accidentally hit it a little too early. Now we will bring you back over here where you guys can actually see me. Gotta get my system all over here all situated because I didn't think about the sewing portion of this thing. Okay, so what I'll do is I'm going to bring number 1 up here, number 1 and 2 fabric up here. Like I said before, we got 1 and 2. We're going to try and fold this over so that way there we can match up our seam here. Match up our fabric so that way there we got our 1/4 of an inch fabric right there, or seam allowance. We are going to make sure our machine is at 2.0 or less stitch width or stitch length, not width. Mine has a button where I just push it and it automatically does it. My machine also does have a thread cutter. However, the blade, I've never replaced the blade in it and the blade got broken. So actually, technically the blade got lost. So what I'll do now is I'll fold this over, and what I'll do is I'll finger press this for right now. And then we are going to shut down this camera that faces the sewing machine so I can turn you around and show you what comes next. There we go. We're back over here now. So I have this pressed down, finger pressed. We can take out our pen because we no longer need that to hold the first fabric down since now we got that seam in there. So what I like to do is I come up here to all of the sides that I no longer need that fabric on. And I just cut that off. That way there, it's less work I got to do later on. So that way there, now I got my seam allowance there for whenever I get ready to add on number 5 to the 1, 2, 4. And you want to go in numerical order on all this when you're sewing this on. So we're going to come over here to where what we would normally be doing with next, which is the adding on number 3. We're going to peel this back, put our ruler down, and you can use any ruler you want. You do not have to use this here. You could use it at a 1/4 ruler. I've even used just normal quilting rulers. And I keep all my little scraps until I have it all completed. And then for the 2 to 4 section, which would be the ending of the hand right there, I have my 1/4 of an inch in there. So now we're ready to add on number 3, which is more the background, which should not have been the blue. So I kind of did that one wrong. So the blue is going to wind up being the background. And I would have to figure out something else for the actual outfit. Maybe I'll use the U of M fabric for the outfit as well as the flag. Let him go all out on his football. I mean, why not? It is my gnome. So remember, we need to make sure we leave plenty of space down here for the seam allowance. We are going to put extra over here and then up. And I can always cut the rest of that off later. And then for up here for this seam, we're going to fold that over with the fabric that we already have on there. So that way there, we can get our good, and I just guesstimate it. That way there, when I go to put this on here, because when you put this on here, so I forgot to explain this part. When you put on number 1, you want the fabric of number 1 facing out. You want the back of the fabric of number 1 to be up against the back of the paper. For the fabric number 2, you want the pretty side, or in my case, the side I want facing for you to see to be facing, so essentially it'll be like the pretty side of the fabric facing the pretty side of the fabric for number 1. That way there you would sew them together, flip it over, and then you'll be able to see your pattern faces here. So since I need this to be right there, like so, what I'll do is I'll fold this over. And I hope I'm not confusing you. If I am, feel free to let me know on the live stream or in the comments, and I'll try to explain it better. I should explain that a little bit better at the very beginning. And it doesn't help that I'm using some batiks, so there is really no wrong side. So what I'll do now is I'll press this over with my fingers for right now. I'll press this with the iron nice and flat and just a little bit. So what we'll do now is now I got my 1, 2, and 3. So let me grab one of my other pieces because I can be able to show you on that. Let me see here. We'll do the football. Let's do the football. So for the football, I'm not really going to show you guys the sewing machine portion at all because you guys know how to sew. So what we're going to do is we got the football here, and I'm going to use this fabric for the football. So I'm just going to set this on here, and I'm going to rough cut right now. Because what I'm really actually going to do is I'm going to have the back of the paper up against the back of the paper or the back of the fabric. So that way there, when you're looking at the block, you'll actually see the pretty fabric. So for doing this, let me get this paper here folded. Oh, I am getting all miscombobulated over here. I swear to goodness gracious. So I need to get folding on this. I need my sewing pieces here all folded so I can show you how to do this. Because I just realized I forgot a very important step to show you guys. And I'm glad I caught this before the end of the video and before I posted it, because otherwise you guys would not have known this. Okay, so we are going to take the front of the fabric, or the front of the paper. We're going to lay our fabric down, face down, pretty side down. We're going to put our pretty side of our pattern up. And what I'm going to do is I am going to lay that right there. I am going to trim over here. And then I'm going to take a pin and I'm going to put in right over here, the edge of my pattern through the fabric and up. So that way there, it holds my fabric right there. Then I'm going to come down here to number 4. Cut that. Move that over. Close your blade. Do not do like I did just a moment ago and left it open. Come over here. And cut that off, the excess off. And depending upon what project you're doing, you could actually salvage some of that. So number 2 right here, as you can see, is super tiny. I'm just going to leave that piece there because I can actually come over here, trim off the excess right there. And then what I'll do is for number 2, which is background. Sorry, I got a piece right here that is plenty to do, probably all of this. I'm going to just lay it right there. Now, say this was a piece of fabric, like say this one right here, and I wanted to do this with the pretty side showing. So what I would do is I would lay this down right here. I would put the pretty sides of the fabrics together, just like you were doing in traditional sewing. So you want the pretty side of the first piece of fabric facing away from the blank side of the paper. Y'all keep the not pretty side of the fabric touching the not pretty side of the paper for the number 1. To connect 1 and 2 together, you want the pretty sides of the fabrics together, like you would do if it was traditional piecing. Then you would hold it right there, bring it over, and do your stitching. Since I'm doing the blue and it's a batik, there are no pretty sides. They're both pretty sides. So I'm just going to hold them together, come over here and do my stitching of this. And I'll be right back with you. Now I can take this out, do my little finger press, and we will trim. So this in here was a little bit of a tricky piece to do because it's up there in a corner, being in the pain in the tushy. So we just got to give it a little extra care on the finger pressing. And now what we'll do is we'll come down and do number 3, 4, and 5. Because remember, we got 5 up here along the side. And all of those 3, 4, and 5 are all background pieces, which is all that light blue color. So I might have to be able to squeeze them all out of this. We will see. See, number 3 will definitely fit. So I am going to try and take, so this right here is number 3. So I'm going to take this right here, lay it edge to edge, and come over and stitch that down. And as you guys probably heard, Quasar is becoming a little bit more awake now with his crazy self. Yeah. I looked to see where my stitching was because I couldn't figure it out. So now what I'll do is I'll come over here and I will trim away 1/4 inch along this edge and 1/4 inch along this edge. Now you can start seeing the football forming a little bit. And now we're going to take another piece of this and we're going to come over here. I'm just going to go ahead and trim that because I already know around about what I'll need for it. Plus, having a smaller piece makes it more manageable under the needle and throat space and all, instead of having a bunch of scrap fabric just floating around over there. And having nails helps quite a bit on doing this sometimes, so Okay, number 5, and then this piece will be done. So let's see, would that be large enough? Yes, it will. Alrighty. Yay. So I'll just lay that right there. We will bring this over here, stitch it down, and then that'll be the end to this piece here. And the best part about using batiks is the fact that they're so easy to crease. And there is our football. And if you see there, it has some stitching on here, which you can easily try and use some black embroidery thread and stitch it right and hand embroider that in there. But we have our football all set, ready to go for our live stream for tomorrow evening, which will come out super gorgeous and everything. So make sure you guys all tune back in for tomorrow. Make sure you guys all tune back in for tomorrow for seeing the completion of this, which will be November 13th of 2024 at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. And you'll be able to see me completely finish off, fingers crossed, within an hour and a half, finish off my football gnome. And since I am using the U of M fabric, I won't be needing this. But I will keep it just for reserves, for in case I decide to do a different one of a different team or something like that I don't have the fabric for. Like I could have used the L to do for Detroit Lions, but I figure I'd tweak it and use it for the University of Michigan Wolverines, because go Michigan. So anyways, you guys have a wonderful, beautiful evening. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and if you have any further questions on this, please feel free to put it in the description box below. And also in the description box below, let me know what team you root for. Curious, because I love the Lions and I love the Wolverines. So, bye.